All right, you want to do the Biden update?
Yeah, let's throw up the Biden update graphic. I love this so much. It's just how I feel waking up every day in Biden's America. All right, so we're gonna, since we talked about the minimum wage not being in the COVID relief bill, I thought it might be good to touch on what did survive the Senate's very, very contentious 50 to 49 vote, Senate vote the other night, I guess, because Joe Manchin kind of pushed it into the early hours of the morning. I remember seeing the notification at 1 or 2 a.m. that they had finally passed it or something. And, Joe Manchin kind of held it hostage, which I think that there are a million ways to deal with someone like Joe Manchin. I don't think he's a very strong political force. So the fact that Democrats aren't dealing with him in any of those ways, aren't using the bully pulpit or any other, anything like that, kind of shows that they're not really committed to a lot of these, to the figures that they've come up with, despite the fact that they're always touting them. But all right, so the first thing obviously that made it through is some form of stimulus check. Although part of Joe Manchin's whole thing was making sure that it was means tested beyond belief. So direct payments for millions of Americans. Anybody making up to $75,000 gets the full check, or couples making up to $150,000 per year.
And that's also worth mentioning here. That, the way that they're telling who makes that much money is based on the 2019 tax returns that were filed in 2020, which is of course worthless because we were going through. We had this unprecedented economic crisis, when COVID started, and a shit ton of people lost their jobs. There were all kinds of economic ripple effects. So just the fact that somebody, all of which is just a long way of saying the fact that somebody made, somebody made X number of dollars in 2019 does not at all necessarily mean that they're actually making that much money now.
Yeah, and there's a really good article in Jacobin about it. There's absolutely no reason to means test the stimulus checks that quotes Bernie saying all working class people deserve the full $1,400. Last I heard, so he said 55,000 because that was the figure I think at the time. But 75,000 just as much. It's still a middle class. You're still in a middle class bracket at that point. Even if I don't think it should be means tested at all. You know what I mean? I think everybody, regardless of how much they make, should get obviously the full 2,000, but the 1,400. But yeah, I mean, so the decision means that 17 million Americans who received a check under Trump won't get one under Biden, according to a study from the Nonpartisan Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy. Horrible fucking optics. First of all, let's talk about that. Just from how can Democrats retain control of any really part of Congress, but how can they retain control of the Senate? That the optics of that are fucking terrible.
More people got a stimulus check. 17 million voters who got a check from Trump, not a check from Biden, and all of the that's just quite apart from all the standard lefty reasons to be against means testing. That's just politically insane.
But I mean, political language is the language they speak. You know what I mean? The Democratic Party. So another thing I kind of wanted to point out was the fact that the $75,000 figure, Biden claims that over 85% of American households will get the full amount, which means that over 85% of American households make $75,000 or less, or if they're a couple, $150,000 or less. That is not. That's also not something that's touted in in the richest country in the history of the world. So I thought that was an interesting statistic. The other day I was reading that 63% of Americans right now are living paycheck to paycheck through this pandemic.
Yeah, I would also say just that because I know that there's a certain kind of liberal viewer who'd say, no, but wait a second. If you look at all this other stuff that was also in the relief package, even though there's 17 million people who got a check from Trump but aren't getting a check from Biden, there's all this other good stuff in there that's going to benefit them. So they'll really benefit more anyway. And all I would say to that is listen to yourself and then ask whether you actually believe that 17 million voters are going to be making all these complicated calculations about, if you really think about it, you're better off, or whether they're just going to say, hey, I got a check from Trump. I didn't get a check from Biden.
Yeah. And it was a brilliant move on Trump's part, because obviously he has the political instincts that they lack, despite not being a politician for most of his life. Like putting his name on the checks, you know what I mean? Like was a fucking brilliant move on his part. So of course the next thing, I guess, is the child tax credit. So it raises the child tax credit from $1,000 to $3,000 per child. And, it's even more for families with young children. They can receive a credit of $3,600 for each child under age 6. I mean, it's refundable tax credits. That's still not you know what I mean? Like, that's still not money handed to.
Oh, yeah, right. Like it's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's insane that it's being it's accepting this right-wing framing that you can only give people money if you package it as a tax cut.
Yeah.
And it's also before we all strain ourselves, patting ourselves on the back about all the poverty this is going to cut. Okay, that's put that back up. How much money per year per child?
Yeah, so it ends up being if your child is over 6, it's 3,000, and it's
that's $3,600
if you have children under 6.
So and that's for the whole year.
And you're means testing children now. Look by age.
Nope, sorry, they just turned 6. $600 for you. Just nuts. But also, okay. I mean, yes. First of all, the fact that it takes so little money to cut the poverty rate that much.
Yeah.
Amazing about the fact that nobody bothered to do it.
No, it's like it's thrown into a bill like, oh, this will cut it by half. Like, all right, we'll cut it by the full fucking thing. That's not even a standalone bill.
Yeah, but also if you've done what Rashida Tlaib wanted, which I believe was to have an initial $2,000 check and then $1,000 a month. After that, until the end of the pandemic, until everybody's vaccinated, then Jesus Christ. I mean, if $3,000 in a child tax credit is going to do that much to counter poverty, how much would that do? If when Rashida first proposed that about a year ago, that would be we'd be up to was it $13,000 or so by now?
Yeah. It also light a fire under both states, and it would light a fire under both states and drug companies that would be providing these vaccines. They're going to want to get, you know what I mean? Like they're going to want to get the vaccines out to people as fast as possible. And, you see all these weird vaccine distribution schemes that are going on, especially, I mean, in New York is a good example of it, but a lot of these are going to fall through. I don't think that would be the case if we were getting a monthly check.
Yeah. Yep. And again, it seems like the easiest call ever. It wouldn't even Jesus, it wouldn't even be that much money in the great scale of government spending, and that you have this is just sort of the the bare minimum of sanity that of course you have this deadly virus that is stopping tons of people from being able to to go to work safely and engage in normal activities, whether it be all this stuff of course give everybody a check and keep giving them a check at least until it's over, but of course, I mean the reason they didn't want to do that was that I mean, whatever. I know this makes me sound like the most lefty ever, but I mean, it really does just boil down to, wait a second, you can't give people too much money, or then they won't be eager to race back to work, to accept wages.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's why it really fucking pisses me off when Democrats turn around and go, oh, we are listening to the science. We're the party of science. We believe in science. the science, like the scientifically smart thing to do would be to give people a monthly check, let people stay home. The virus would have been, if people aren't going places, like obviously some people would still have the virus because like some people aren't going to listen to whatever people put out there. But like for the most part, the people that are going out and like spreading the virus are the people that are going to work. You know what I mean? Like they're going to labor under conditions that they're not protected. They're not, they're not given the same protections as everyone else. They probably don't want to go to work. You know what I mean? Like, but like they have to, obviously, under the system. The scientifically smartest thing to do would be to make sure that as many people as possible are able to stay home through this entire pandemic.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, and then you didn't even need to do a lot of those, like, I mean, we like rush to vaccine schemes that seem to be exceedingly failing. So
no, that's so yeah, you want to do one more point from the bill?
Yeah. So I guess the last important point is the unemployment insurance, which once again, I mean, so this is where Joe Manchin's whole thing came in. He didn't want to give people $400 a week that were unemployed, which is the House bill had that. He wants to give people $300 a week. So they cut it by $100, which is really interesting because Trump's unemployment insurance, like the CARES Act, you know what I mean? Like that he got to put his name on was $600 a week. Then Trump kind of cut it by an executive order down to $400. Then the last, whatever, like, when it's like $400, but $300 was federal and $100 was state. And then they kind of cut the $100 that was state. And now it's just a flat $300 this time, which you'd think the Democrats would want to raise it at least a little bit. You know what I mean? Like Republicans can just turn around and say under Trump you were getting $600 a week. I mean, I don't think they will, but so that's kind of an interesting one that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of this stuff too, this is one of the things that that I was that I was talking about on Katie Halper last night before we we got into a long argument about voting. But then we, like, a lot of this stuff, I think that, and I think this is going to be like the general shape of the next 4 years, that there's this like constant back and forth where the left talks about how like everything that Biden could and should be doing that he's not doing, and that the liberals revert back to what they always what they were doing for 8 years under Obama, which is to say, this is like Green Lanternism. You think that the president can do anything if they want it bad enough. You silly leftists, you don't understand how politics works. And a lot of this stuff, like, hey, it's a philosophy heavy episode anyway. Let's just throw this in there. There's Harry Frankfurt is a 20th century philosopher who wrote about free will and moral responsibility, and he's got all these famous famous thought experiments that are supposed to show that you can be in control of something in the right way for it to be your fault, even if you're not in control in the sense that there's something different you could have done, which is counterintuitive. But he's got interesting examples that are supposed to show it. But like the reason I keep thinking about this is that this is like everything that's a lot of this stuff, right? And of course, look, obviously the Republicans exist. That's 49 votes in the Senate. Manchin and Sinema exist. The filibuster, exists. All this stuff is true, right? And there are, for different ones of these, there are different arguments we can have about how much Biden and the Democratic leadership could be doing to overcome these obstacles. But like also, and this gets us to the Frankfurt point, I don't know how relevant all that is, because it's like, look at Joe Biden's entire fucking career, that we went over, what is it, like a month ago. Look at Chuck Schumer's entire career. Look at Nancy Pelosi's entire career. These people are acting on their preferences, right? It might be true that they really have some of these obstacles, and it's complicated. I think it's like true in some cases. It's kind of bullshit in other cases. Like, they could just fire the Senate parliamentarian if they wanted to, or have Harris overrule him. Like that's.
And it's the beginning. It's the beginning of Biden's term. It's not like, you know what I mean. Like the pushback he'd get, as in like, you know, oh well, if you fire the Senate parliamentarian, like we could just run against you next time and say, look, Biden like ran like a king. He could do whatever he wants. By the time that anyone used some kind of example like that, it'll be, you know, it's 4 years in the future.
I mean, I also don't really buy that there's going to be a big upsurge of voters who give a shit one way or the other about the Senate parliamentarian, or who have ever heard of the Senate parliamentarian before the last week.
Well, it's about building a case. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not about anybody giving a shit about the Senate parliamentarian, but it's more about like, you know, because they tried to do this under Obama and it didn't work. And then liberals tried to do this under Trump. It's like, oh, they're you know, they're governing like a king or an emperor or whatever when they start, you know what I mean, pushing their power too much.
Well, I mean, but there's always a lot of that all around. I'm not quite how much voters really care about that, but like the whole thing is too. It's like, yeah, we can have complicated arguments about what they could or should be doing in some cases. I think like the parliamentarian thing, I think that's like a really easy case. They totally could have just like, I mean, that's like driving a tank and there's like a little rubber cone in the street and saying, oh, I guess we can't drive past this. But there are other things where it's like, yeah, look, you know, like the Manchin thing, like that's hard. Like the last primary challenge against Manchin was crushed, you know? So it's like, there are real obstacles. That's true. But the thing is, like, all of these claims, the Democrats can't do this, that, or the other thing because of these obstacles. I think they're all kind of half true, half false, and entirely irrelevant because the reason that they're acting the way that they're acting is not, for the most part, that obstacles. It's not like Biden, you know, it's not like, it's not like Biden and Chuck Schumer would be governing like Bernie and AOC if not for these obstacles. This is what they are.
I disagree that the Manchin thing is hard. I don't think it is.
What do you think we should be doing about do you think that like?
So specifically for Manchin, I don't think it would work with Sinema or somebody like that. But Manchin knows he's walking this very thin tightrope walk. You know what I mean? Like down a path where, you know, most people that are Republicans just want to vote for a Republican. They don't want to vote for Joe Manchin. You know what I mean? Like he has in West Virginia, he has a certain understanding that voters believe that he's going to fight for them in a certain way. So, but if somebody were to go around on the bully pulpit and just say, this is the person holding things up, not like they're doing kind of in the media where they're just like, oh, you know, we have Bernie Sanders and we have Joe Manchin, like two sides of like, no, if you were to go around and say, Joe Manchin is the reason why you're not getting this. Joe Manchin is the reason why you're not getting this. We want to raise the minimum wage. Joe Manchin is stopping it. If Biden were to use the bully pulpit like that, I think Joe Manchin specifically would fold. I
mean, I think that might be true. I think that it could be that he would go down with the ship and, you know, in confident belief that he would have a new life as a very well-paid corporate lobbyist.
He threatens to quit every other like year too. But he's threatened to quit like 3 times.
But I think the larger point is, look, yeah, maybe these things you're talking about would work, and maybe they aren't. But like, it says everything that Biden is trying any of this shit. Like, he's not going to war with Joe Manchin because he doesn't. It's not like Joe Manchin is frustrating his heart's desire that, like, damn it, you know, Biden really wants to, you know, give everybody health care and higher wages and all this stuff. Like, Biden was the senator from the credit card companies in Delaware. You know, he was VP for 8 years, you know, under Obama. It's not like he just doesn't have these underlying preferences. And so I think that, you know, like, I think that this whole thing about obstruction, obviously it's an argument we need to engage in because it's like there's no avoiding it, you know, and we need to spend this time. I remember I was talking about this with Megan Day after she was on one of the live streams just after the election. And after we went off air, we were talking about how, look, we're probably both going to be writing like so many articles the next 4 years of the form, hey, Democrats claim they can't do this, but here's something they could do that people are going to be beyond sick of it. But like, so obviously that's an argument that we need to engage with. But also I think that like we have to recognize that on a level, it's almost beside the point because it's like sure, even when it is true that there's like obstruction that like they really can't do anything about, like that's not why they're governing like neoliberal centrist shitheads. They're governing like neoliberal centrist shitheads because they are.
Yeah, and a perfect bellwether to look at that is the fact that obviously Manchin and Sinema voted against the minimum wage, but so did Coons, who's like Biden's guy in Congress or in the Senate, I mean, and so did the other Delaware senator. They if Biden had come out strongly and said this is something I want in this bill, they would have voted with Biden. You know what I mean? Like if it was a priority that Biden had, that he was like, this is an essential priority. I think that that's kind of a bellwether that you could see, because I think that those are two people that will probably vote with Biden if he comes out strongly on anything. You know what I mean? Like he's the former Delaware senator. They're the current Delaware senators. I think that the fact that they felt comfortable enough, the fact that they felt comfortable enough voting against the minimum wage shows where Biden's priorities are.
Yeah, I think that's right. So somebody in the chat says Nomiki had a guy recently who's running radio ads in West Virginia. So Target Manchin, on the stuff. So yeah, so we can talk about that with her next Monday.